Let us go through now the various things that we highlighted in the Quranic ayahs. We said firstly of the oceans boiling in Surah 82 verse 3. Now this, of course, if we consider the impact of the meteor or any heavenly body with the earth will be drawn closer to the sun. As a result of the earth's orbit becoming closer to the sun, obviously the temperatures are going to increase because of the earth being closer to the sun. Also, because of the increase in rotation of the speed, the earth will start losing its atmosphere because the atmosphere will be thrown off and would not be able to be held down by the force of gravity. And hence all this would result in the oceans beginning to boil. Secondly, if we have the explosion, for example, from the contraction of the earth itself, then we could get tremendous release of energy and heat from the core of the earth. And this heat, of course, would cause the oceans to boil. Of course, there's also the volcanic activity, and the eruption of hot lava from the volcanoes would also have the same effect. The third possibility, of course, is the expansion of the sun, which we explained in the second program, that as the sun gets older, it's going to start expanding. And of course, this would also have the same effect of causing increase in temperature on the earth's surface. The oceans catching fire, as we are told in Surah 81 verse 6. This could be highly possible because of the bursting of the earth's interior as a result of the collision or as a result of the explosion from the contraction of the earth itself. Also, we know there will be vast volcanic activity and the release of very hot red lava that may occur even beneath the seas because of the large amount of volatile rocks beneath the sea itself. And this would cause the oceans to catch on fire. We also know that the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which said that near the day of Qiyamah, the sun would rise from the west. And we may think that this is very strange. But of course, let us consider this in the light of the possible mechanisms. If we have a collision of the earth by a very large meteor, then this could be of a sufficient impact to cause the earth's rotation to reverse. And instead of the earth moving from east to west as it normally does, it would cause it to rotate from west to east, as a result of which the sun would rise from the west. So this is a likely possibility as well. Fourthly, the earthquakes and the commotion, which is referred to in Surah 99 verse 12. And here we see that if you have a continuous series of earthquakes, and these earthquakes are going to be of a tremendous magnitude, resulting in the crust breaking apart and the whole heavy core of the earth to be thrown out and burst out. Now we know that an earthquake, we have measured the Richter scale of 7 and 8, and we know that it causes buildings to collapse. And if we consider an earthquake which on the Richter scale would measure 9 and over, this would be sufficient to cause the earth crust to open up and cause mountains to break down and rivers to disappear. And with the bursting of the earth's interior, the earth will empty her burdens, as one of the Quranic ayahs explain. And of course the earth will be flattened because of the mountains being destroyed and being swallowed up by the bursting of the earth's crust. And this picture of many volcanic eruptions will explain this phenomena of this commotion and earthquakes as stipulated in the Quran. The reference to the mountains turning into sand and the mountains being thrown like carded wool. Now we know that if the intensity and the frequency of vibrations to which solids are subjected are increased above a certain threshold, then it would cause the solids to crumble and disintegrate. And therefore, when we find the Quran refers to this commotion and this violent commotion and this vibration, this could easily cause this intensity and frequency of vibration, which could cause the mountains to crumble and disintegrate and become sand. Now also, if we consider the speed of the earth increasing, there would be a large increase in the centrifugal forces, and this would cause mountains to break down and they would be thrown off into the air, just as mud is thrown off a bicycle wheel as it spins. And this would be the mountains flying as if they were carded wool. Now we will get explosion of the earth itself, and this would cause the extreme earthquakes as mentioned in the various Quranic ayahs. The vibrations and the grinding of the earth, as it is said. We find that there's an explosive release of energy and mountains will be flying off and breaking up into pieces. Now this, of course, could be very possible if we consider the extreme pressures in the core of the earth. As a result of the contraction of the earth, this would explode like a bomb. And you can imagine the whole earth exploding with what tremendous force and tremendous release of energies involved. And this could easily account for the extreme vibrations and the very high pressure waves which could result in the destruction of these mountains. So we see that Allah knows best how everything is going to occur. But just for the purpose for us to gain some understanding and to realize that these descriptions given of the Day of Judgment are not fictitious, not just stories, but something that is very real and something that really is highly plausible and will happen, and something which science today accepts as a possible reality. So we must realize that, when we read the Quranic ayah, these are things that could actually occur. And we must not become skeptical and, regard these things as stories and not practical. These are very rational, very real, very scientific phenomena that can possibly occur.
Sure. It's pretty scary stuff, eh? I think let us now proceed to a different aspect. We've discussed already the evolution and the fate of the earth. What we now are going to start off is with regard to, on the earth, we've mentioned that 70% of our earth is covered with water. We now are going to focus on this very, very important element. We're going to look at the verses which highlight and emphasize the importance of water and the various benefits that water has for man. Now the first of a series of verses which I'm going to read out is found in Surah 2 verse 22, where we are told, Allah is the one who made the earth a couch for you, and the heavens a canopy or roof, and He has sent down water from the sky. He brought forth thereward fruits for your sustenance. Do not join equals with Allah when you know. Another verse in Surah 2 verse 164, we are told, Behold, in the creation of the heavens and the earth, in the alternation of night and day, in the ship which runs upon the sea for the profit of mankind, in the water which Allah sends down from the sky, thereby reviving the earth after its death, in the beasts of all kinds He scatters therein, in the change of the winds which He has subjected, and the clouds between the sky and earth. Here are signs for people who are wise.
I think just a point there that we find that, throughout the Quran, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala refers to natural phenomena, always we find a very sudden reality being brought to our notice of the reference to our life. And here we find in that verse where Allah says that He has provided for us on the earth, He has provided the heavens as a roof, as a protection, He has given sky, the water from the sky, and has given fruit for us to eat and so on, and explains how beautifully He has provided for us. And the obvious conclusion of this is that we must be grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and realize that He has provided so much for us. So surely He is the one who provides for us, and He is the one that should be worshipped. So Allah says immediately, do not join equals with Allah when you know. To highlight then that if you see all the provisions and the wonders before you, how can you then say that there is others besides Allah that you can worship? Surely you have to worship Him who provides you with all things.
Just to take up on that, the first verse which I've read out, Allah talks about the earth as being a couch. A couch, as we know, is a place of comfort and relaxation. That Allah has made things easy for us, our life on this earth easy for us. He has not placed, as He says in the Quran, on a soul a burden greater than that which He can bear. And He tells us how He has made life easy for us. As I've mentioned, He sent water. And from the water, He gives life to the dead earth. He's provided fruit for our sustenance. Another benefit which Allah says in the second verse, that because of the water, it has enabled man to communicate with one another through the oceans and through the sea. Allah says, the ships which run on the sea for the profit of mankind. So He has enabled us to traverse the oceans, communicate, and gain profit from the oceans in the form of trade, in the form of commerce. And as I mentioned, Allah refers to the natural phenomena to draw our attention, to highlight His mercy. Let us look at another verse in Surah 13 verse 3. And I quote, Allah is the one who spreads out the earth and sets therein mountains standing firm, and rivers. For every plant He placed two of a pair. He covers the day with the night. Verily, in this there are signs for people who reflect. Now just to highlight one or two points of the verse. Firstly, the issue of two of a pair in the plants, where this is an issue, I'm just alluding to it now. The concept of the sex in plants is something which we will discuss at a later stage. Again, Allah says in this verse, He covers the day with the night. We've discussed in the previous episodes how the day and night cycle is possible and how important it is for there to be this alternation in order for life to function normally on this earth. So this again Allah wants us to reflect as one of His signs and miracles. Again in Surah 15 verse 19 to 21 we are told, the earth we spread it out and set therein mountains standing firm. We cause all things to grow therein in due balance. Therein we have provided you and those you do not supply with means of sustenance. And there is not a single thing but its stores are with us. We do not send down save in appointed measure. Again, some very important points that need highlighting from this verse, where firstly Allah says that everything He causes to grow in due balance. We've discussed in previous programs the harmony, the balance and the order in creation and in nature, in the plant and animal kingdom. There is no disproportion, there is no chaos, there is complete harmony and balance, pointing to the existence of Allah. So Allah says everything is in balance. Again He says that He is a provider of our sustenance, and not only of our sustenance but of every single living creature on this earth. As Allah says, and He provided for those that you do not supply with means of sustenance. So everything owes its sustenance to Allah. And Allah says, and there is not a thing but its stores are with us. He is the source of sustenance for every living creature on this earth. And it is sent down in appointed measure, according to the divine scheme. So everything on this earth, in this universe, is provided for by Allah. Again in Surah 20 verse 53 and 54 we are told, Allah is the one who has made for you the earth like a cradle and inserted roads into it for you. He sent down water from the sky, and thereby we brought forth pairs of plants, each separate from the other. Eat, pasture your cattle. Verily, in this are signs for people endued with intelligence. Here again, these are seemingly obvious and simple facts which Allah is highlighting to us. But if one were to contemplate them and think about them, it reflects to Allah and points at Allah's mercy towards us. Allah says He has sent down water from which we provide sustenance and even the animals. And Allah tells us He has, because of this water and its life-giving property, in so far as resurrecting a dead earth and providing food, we are able to get our food. Not only us, also the animals. And Allah says, look, reflect, think, and if you've got intelligence, realize that this is the handiwork of your Creator. Again, in Surah 27 verse 61 we are told, He who made the earth an abode and set rivers in its midst and mountains standing firm. He placed a barrier between the two seas. Is there any besides Allah? Nay, but most people do not know. Here again a very important point is highlighted where Allah says with regard to water, the oceans, there is a barrier that Allah has put between the oceans. We will not discuss this, but in future programs we will analyze this verse, exactly what is Allah referring to when He talks about the barrier of water which does not mix. Just two more verses with regard to general references on water. As I've mentioned, we are discussing quite a few verses, each of which highlights the importance of water to man, to animal, and to survival of this earth and all living plants and animals. Again in Surah 67 verse 15 we are told, Allah is the one who subjected the earth for your use. So walk upon its tracks, eat of His sustenance, and unto Him will be the resurrection. And finally in Surah 79 verse 30 to 33 we are told, after that Allah spreads the earth out. Therefrom He draws out its water and its pasture. And the mountain He has firmly fixed for you and for your cattle. Now, we've gone through quite a few verses, but there are many, many verses in the Quran which deal with water and which emphasize the importance of water and the practical consequences of its presence on this earth. In that, it is important for making the soil fertile and for giving life to a barren and dead earth. For the Arab living in the desert, he will know the benefits and importance of water. And scientifically as well, we know that as much as 70% of the earth is covered with water. And the earth as a planet is rich in water and unique to our solar system. This is what the Quran highlights, the important properties of water. Because without water, the earth would be completely dead. I mean, they have undertaken missions to Mars. Because there is no water, they realize that there is no possibility of life existing on the planet. So water is absolutely essential for survival. So that is why the Quran gives priority to water among the natural phenomena of earth. And it refers in many, many verses that water is indeed a life-giving source.
Now the properties of water, if we look at it, it is indeed remarkable and unique, and nothing short of being described as miraculous. First of all, if you look at the periodic table, now periodic table is a table which is drawn up in which all the elements of the earth are placed according to their differing in weights, and they are grouped according to similar properties. So if one looks at the periodic table, one can predict the properties of the various elements that lie together. Now let us look at water, for example. Now water has a formula weight of 18. What it says, a formula weight of 18 in scientific terms. Now if we look at this, we would predict that it would exist as a gas under normal conditions. But what do we find? Water is not a gas under normal conditions. Let's look at ammonia, whose formula weight is 17, one less than water. Now ammonia is a gas at normal temperatures and is even a gas at minus 33 degrees Celsius. But this doesn't fit in. If we look at another compound which is very closely related to water, which is hydrogen sulfide, it's H2S, and water is H2O. Now this compound, hydrogen sulfide, is a gas even until minus 59 degrees. So this is amazing that you find that water, which should behave like the other elements in the periodic table, which are of similar structure and similar atomic weight, is very different. It very unusually exists as a liquid at ordinary temperature. And this is something to make one stop and marvel.
So in other words, you're saying water should actually have been a gas like all the other elements. Is that basically it? It should have been gas.
Absolutely. I mean, if that's the atomic weight, then normally that element the compound would exist as a gas. But miraculously, water is not a gas. And we know how important it is for water to be a liquid at normal temperature. Now, there are other 4 unique properties which are absolutely vital for life on Earth. Number 1, the power of absorbing vast quantities of oxygen at low temperatures. Now, water is capable of absorbing large amounts of oxygen at very low temperatures. Secondly, it has a maximum density at 4 degrees above freezing. That is, its maximum density is above the freezing point, and it is important for its density to be at a maximum above the freezing point, and we will see why. Also, water in the form of ice has got a lower density than liquid water. And this is also important, as I will discuss just now. And the 4th unique property is that it has a great power to release vast amounts of heat as it freezes. Now, these 4 properties are very essential for life as such. Because of this, we find water preserves life in the oceans, in the lakes and rivers through the long winters. Now, as water freezes, its volume increases compared to its mass, and therefore its density, of course, is lower and it floats. Now, we may remark that the normal law is if you heat anything, it expands, and if you cool it, it should contract. But we find with water, when we cool it, it actually expands. This is a paradoxical thing, but this is very important. And we find that this doesn't occur with any other element. And water is the only element which exhibits this very strange behavior that it expands when it is being cooled instead of contracting. Now, because it expands, its volume is bigger compared to its mass, so it becomes less dense. And because of this fact, it can float. So ice floats. Now, had it normally contracted when it cools like any other normal element, then it would have become heavier than water and it would have sunk. And therefore, instead of floating, it would sink to the bottom of the lakes, bottom of the rivers and the oceans and freeze into one solid mass. And once we have this, of course, no life will be possible in the water, in the ocean, in the rivers during the long, long winters.
So in those massive icebergs in Antarctica, the only reason, in other words, what you're saying, the only reason that they are floating on the water is because of this unique property whereby they are actually expanded when the water cooled off.
Yes, the ice itself. If you look at the ice itself, it forms a solid mass on the surface, but it forms a layer of insulation actually, and we find that below it, water still remains in a liquid form and stays above the temperature of freezing. Now that's the importance of water, as I said, reaching its maximum density at 4 degrees above freezing. So the water, it does not allow the water beneath the surface to freeze up. So this water stays as a liquid, and this is the only reason that it makes possible for fish and other marine life to survive under this mass of ice in the water. Now it also, as I said, is a layer of insulation, and because when it freezes, it gives us vast amounts of heat, so it maintains the temperature of the water well above the freezing point. Also, when we find in spring, the ice begins to melt very rapidly, and this is absolutely tremendously important for marine life. Now, we are also told in Surah 21 verse 30, "Do not the unbelievers see the heavens and the earth were joined together, then we clove them asunder, and we made out every living thing out of water. Will they not then believe?" Now, the importance of water, Allah says He created everything from water. Now, this could mean that either every living thing originated in water, or every living thing is made of water. And both these interpretations are perfectly in accordance with science. They know that life was aquatic in origin. And in fact, the earliest compounds have been found to have been formed in water, and the first cells that are found were actually algae, which lived in water. Man also is made up of water predominantly. 75% of man is water. So, for example, a 70 kilogram man, 50 kilograms of that is only water. And if you look at a cell itself is about 75 to 80% of the cell is water. And as somebody beautifully described the cell, we can describe it as microscopic water drops containing inorganic and organic compounds, because this is a major component of the cell. Now, 75% of the surface of the earth also is covered with water, and 97% of this is in the oceans. So the majority of the earth is covered with water, and less than 25%, of course, is solid earth in which we live. Also, the importance of water, we know if you can do without food, maybe up to about 60 days, you can survive. But if you don't have water, you won't survive between 3, maximum 10 days, and you wouldn't survive more than that, which shows how important water is to sustain life as such. Now, the various benefits of water are far too numerous to be discussed, but what we can just sufficiently say that water is absolutely indispensable for life. I think that's all we'll have time for to cover this week. Thank you for joining us, and from me, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.